Yeah, I got it. We're also,
I better ask
we're also
you
at
questions.
workshop for about 20 minutes. I like to talk.
Robert. Should I Robert? Rob?
Yes, Robert. Robert's fine. Robert Coppola.
Jackie, Javon, and Francisco.
Yeah, you got it right.
Not Frankie.
Not Javon. It's Javon.
I'm John. J-O-H-N.
Yeah. And I'm gonna need business cards. Since you're running out of here, John, fast, do you have a business card on you?
We're on emails.
Okay. How you not have business cards? I don't
I'm
understand.
out. I reordered them.
You know Blink, you can add it and just scan it. Free 99. Save a tree.
I know a lot of people do.
Everybody having a good morning so far? Out here at the table, everybody good? Who traveled the farthest to get here today? Who thinks they, anyone come from Lancaster? Palmdale? No? Orange County? Anybody? South Bay? Anybody walk?
I came from another earth.
Nobody walks in LA, right?
I walk daily. It's good for you.
I gotta walk before the sun comes out. Try to walk early. Yeah.
Everybody else leaves?
Yeah. We'll be talking to ourselves.
Good morning, everybody. My name's John Bueri. I am, I think today, the CEO of the Alhambra Chamber of Commerce. I'm also the CEO of the Temple City Chamber of Commerce too, but for now we'll just say Alhambra. But I've worked with Leaf and Elaine for a number of years, trying to bring programming to the community of Alhambra and Temple City, and particularly targeting our AAPI community of entrepreneurs. And so really honored to be here today to help facilitate this discussion as we talk about building rapport through program design and approaches that really are human-centered, right? Like, this is not a machine when we talk about economic development or supporting small businesses. This is really about the way that we can find the humanity in economic growth, economic independence that comes from being an entrepreneur or being a part of the economic ecosystem, the economic economy, if you will, the economy in Los Angeles and in the neighborhoods and cities therein. So today I'm joined by an esteemed panel that has a lot more interesting things to say than that. First we have Javon Sanders, who's a South LA native, Crenshaw High grad, and founder and CEO of Toss It Up Salad, a company dedicated to providing healthy eating options and addressing food deserts in South LA community. She is works as a Leaf growth facilitator and serves on the Voices Neighborhood Council, focusing on neighborhood beautification and supporting local businesses. Thanks, Javon, for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Next, we have Jackie Perez. She's a proud first-gen Latina committed to promoting dignity, respect, and economic justice for underserved communities. Her work focuses on combating the economic and social impacts of poverty, fostering upward mobility, and promoting long-term economic security through education. She serves as Economic Justice Manager at Orale. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. ORL, where she leads initiatives that promote financial empowerment and economic security for marginalized communities. Next, we have Robert Zardaneta.
Zardaneta. Or Zardaneta.
Or Zardaneta, from the beach. Robert brings a vast experience and knowledge as seasoned leader in LA nonprofit community. Known for his zest in driving toward positive change, Robert has a distinguished track record in fostering collaboration with local, national, even international stakeholders to promote economic, educational, and environmental gains. Currently, he's with the Urban League here in Los Angeles, or LA Urban League.
Los Angeles.
Yeah. And finally, all the way to my right is Francisco Alvarez. He's the Director of Operations at TMC Community Capital, and the TMC stands for? No. TMC. He leads the underwriting and servicing. Are they recording this? Is this going to be the session to watch? Good for you two. He leads the underwriting and service departments to ensure small businesses and local entrepreneurs receive the support they need. With over 2 decades of experience in lending and financial services, he brings a strategic and creative approach to financing solutions, balancing risk management with accessibility. So before we even start, please give it up for this esteemed panel. I have 32 questions, 4 pages worth of questions, but we're gonna probably only hit a couple of them. And I told the panel as we prepped, like, this is a conversation between us for you, but I'm gonna make sure that we get to your questions and input as well. But let's start with all the way back at Francisco. Can you describe the name of, I'm just kidding. Can you describe your role in designing and implementing programs and your approach to trust, right? How do you bring trust and engagement to center your work? Because you're in a big money market, right? You're lending a ton of money, your organization's very large, state, national.
No, we're just state.
We're just state.
We're still here in California. And for the record, TMC does really not stand for anything. It's just initials. It's not that I don't know. It's really just TMC. TMC Community Capital fully. I've been on board here for a little bit over a year. I joined last January. And as a director on the underwriting side, you know, I lead that team, but I'm also front and center of making any policy decisions that are going to change, or if we're going to really change or launch something new. I'm kind of the last voice there, so to speak. But this conversation is not about that. It's how do we regain trust and how do we get the community involved? One of the things we really do is we listen. So we don't come from a standpoint of, hey, we know what we're doing, we're lending this money, it's our money, here are the rules. We really listen to our community partners. All right, Natalie's here in the front row. Natalie goes out to tons of events. She covered our Southern California area. But what we do is we listen to the partners, like Leaf. We listen to our clients. So one of the things we did, I'll give you an example, is when I first joined, we required 6 months of bank statements for you to apply for a loan. 6 months, we kept getting feedback that our clients couldn't provide 6 months of bank statements. We're like, well, why can't our clients do that? Can't they just go online and download a few statements? But a lot of our clients are not real tech savvy. And we learned that our clients weren't tech savvy. They were having to rely on their kids, whether they were high school age or college age or a family friend. This was sensitive data. So we took that back and we said, well, what do they really have? They probably have the statement, you know, for an April, they probably have a March statement. February's probably lying around somewhere. Can they give us 3 months of statements? You know, can we make that change? But we made that change not because it's something we decided. We listened to the community, we listened to our partners, we listened to the outreach that was out there. And so that's just one example of how we listen, how we come from a place of, okay, let's understand the real problem. Why can't people provide this information? And how do we resolve that?
Great. And then, in your experience, before you were at TMC, where were you?
I was at a local company, and we did alternative financing, factoring specifically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you think about your career, 20 years, 2 decades worth of working, where's that lesson of trust? What is really the key in success in building trust for you?
It's really listening to the client. It's understanding the client. You know, why they're entrepreneurs. They're already taking a big risk. They're providing financial information for you, which most people don't want to provide. I don't know how much money. I've known some of my friends since kindergarten. I have no idea how much money they make. Talking about finances is not something that's really common to most people. You don't know how much people make. You don't know what they want to make. So it's really sensitive data. It's really intimate information that they're providing to you, right? So once they provide that to you, there's a certain bond that you develop with your client, with the partners that you service. So I think it's important to listen and understand that they are being vulnerable by sharing this information with you. And that's kind of where it comes from.
Yeah, so listening and sort of the respect of vulnerability, almost empathy for the circumstance that they're in as you listen. Let me go over to Robert. Similar question, right? As like program design, trust, and engagement, but I want to add another layer to that around cultural responsiveness, and and maybe give a quick blurb and update of the modern LA Urban League, because I think that maybe people have a historical understanding. What's the Urban League up to today, and how does that fit into this idea of cultural responsiveness?
Okay. So at the Los Angeles Urban League, we're historically an advocacy organization. We're a preeminent organization in advocacy and civil rights, for the past 100 years on both a local and a national level. So our program design is developed through this lens of advocacy, which kind of establishes that trust, right? We started off we have 4 pillars that we serve programmatically. Advocacy, we started off with advocacy, and then we moved on to based on community demand, workforce development, education, and small business and entrepreneurship. So we take so that being said, a lot of times within these nonprofit spaces that are, responsive to the community, being an expert in any field in the nonprofit area is a privilege, right? A lot of times based on community needs, we have to become experts, right? And as we have that conversation with folks, as long as we're transparent with the community, we're sharing our vulnerability. Hey, like I might not know this space. Like me personally, in terms of small business, my focus in my career has been workforce development and education. So like I'm still learning about, small businesses, but I know community and I know people. So having that people-centered approach and being honest with the community, like, hey, we're gonna learn this together, right? We're gonna figure it out together. I think is really important. And I think, so we develop programs that are based on needs and addressing barriers. What the community needs, what the small business needs. We develop programs based on that. Because a lot of programs that we have, they have this concept where they're built on, if you build it, they will come, right? Programs are designed based on general assumptions of what the community needs are, or based on what funders want to fund, right? And then after you do that, then the community, then, it's, okay, programs, resources, then we as, the agencies have to find community members that match those, that qualify, right? So sometimes you don't get the people that need it the most, right? You get the people that are best served to meet that. And I think, that's, and so what we do is the opposite of that, right? Working with the community, working with the community to, identify those issues, in a space that's inclusive of the businesses, and because a lot of times the businesses or community isn't at the table when they're designing programs. So my personal experience as an ED, one of our highlighted programs is our Intuit Ideas program, which is working with Intuit Ideas. When I was a young executive director, years ago, in this area, I didn't have an ideas program that provided me access to all of Intuit's portfolio programs like QuickBooks and TurboTax and MailChimp that would have been really helpful. I didn't have a business counselor to teach me how to use these products, how to teach me how to build capacity, how to bring access to capital. I didn't have an executive wellness coach that was gonna talk to me about imposter syndrome and help work on my personal development so that I could establish good pitches. And I definitely didn't have a company like Intuit, based on top of giving me all that, give me an extra $10,000 to $5,000, to help build my capacity. All I had was this yellow QuickBooks for Dummies book that I bought at Barnes & Noble to help me figure out, because I couldn't afford it at the time. I couldn't afford a director of finance. I had to do all our bookkeeping, all our accounting by myself. And then I had my peers, which were like some of these older EDs. I'm not gonna name names, but they were waiting on this young dude to fail. This young kid, he's full of ideas, and yeah, that's how it works. So I didn't have that. So I think that's why, that's one of the beauty of the Urban League is we are advocates. So we can go to Intuit and we could say, hey, you as a firm, you as an agent, you as a firm, our people use your products. What are you gonna give to them? You work off them, you benefit from them, what are you giving back? And that's the basis of our programs, our programming. Calling out businesses, calling out Office Depot, Pepsi's, UPS, all these programs, and or calling out our local governments, to help develop programs that are more responsive. And in terms of cultural, our cultural responsiveness, I think it's important as we build out like cultural relevant programming that we also build out like a culturally relevant implementation team, so that like our business counselors have share the same cultural aesthetic as the community, as the businesses they serve. So they've been through the same programs. They've been through they understand the community. They understand the issues. They understand the barriers. They speak the same language. We're able to not only maybe translate documents from different languages, from English to Spanish, but sometimes from English to English, right? Because some of these, terms we have to like really kind of like put them in layman's terms for folks. So doing that is really key. So our counselors could have shared experiences, and then also building these intergenerational models. Because one of the early things when I was like when I was in another organization doing market makeovers early on, 20 years ago, in East LA, one of the things that, we couldn't, a lot of the mom and pop tienditas in our community, they were still doing their accounting on business ledgers and books. Yeah. And, and so a lot of those folks weren't able to qualify for the programs. But there was so much intergenerational stuff that we could have learned because those mom and pop tienditas have been around forever. And so like we developed this network of businesses that come from the same community, that have these shared experience, but are intergenerational, so they could share best practices, and so that young folks could talk to the older folks, and old folks could talk to the young folks. And so we feel, based on if we have this community network that we're building, and our programs are scaffolding, leading from one program to another, I think that's really key.
Right. You said so much in here.
Yeah.
Around the cultural centeredness, and that's sort of leads to trust. I actually want to jump to Javon for a minute. You are an entrepreneur.
Yes.
As we heard in her bio, right? Toss it up south. As you heard what both Francisco and Robert said about how organizations look at community partners and want to be that trusting partner, what do you see as the biggest obstacle to building trust on the receiving end of people who have the best intention? Because I think this is what is clear about this. We all come from a great place of intention. We all want to do good, but sometimes we show up and say, here's how we're going to help you. Here's how you can be helped by us, versus perhaps another approach, as we've heard described here, which is listening first, or respecting sort of the cultural competencies and relevant touch points. What do you see the obstacle as someone who has been in this space of receiving, and now are in a space of trying to provide that support and build trust as well? What's the obstacles you see?
The obstacles, starting off as an entrepreneur, we have multiple jobs. Some of us are still at work at the time that they are open. So we have our 9 to 5s, and they do too. So by the time we off from work, they're closed. They're unavailable. We can leave messages, we can send emails. However, when they get back to us, we're back at work. So we're playing phone tag. We're just emailing back and forth. And like stated before, a lot of us have trust issues when it comes to just emailing. You know, who is this person? So it's like, okay, either you create a team to go and approach small businesses and say, hey, this is how we could help you. That's one thing I do like about Leaf. They have an outreach team. They will take the time out to go and help because we're busy. And it's like, how are we supposed to go to TMC? How are we supposed to go to our Urban League? And it's like 15 minutes to closing time. They want to go home. They're tired. And of course, it's understandable. And it's like, well, how do we grow? We're a one-man team, one-woman team. And it's like, how are we supposed to show up to get the resources? Majority of them, in-person classes. How? When I have to produce for my business, but you want to see 3 months worth of bank statements.
Right.
It's like, it's a tug of war.
What I'm hearing you say, and I'll come back to you, what I'm hearing you say is also that if you're running a program like this, it's not about, hey, we put a website up, come to us. It's really show up. I'm also hearing you say, you didn't say it, but like, think about non-traditional hours. What's that 5 to 8 p.m. window look like? Or, unfortunately, that 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. window, right? There's those early birds that they're doing their entrepreneurial hustle before they go to their real job, right? Or when they get home. How many programs, I mean, and I'm not calling anybody out, but how many programs actually have that schedule to say, we're putting people out when the people who we're trying to serve are being met, right? Like, that's a really important takeaway. You guys are doing it. Yeah. And I think that's why you're on the panel, right? You're just doing that. Let me come back to you, but I want to hear from Jackie, and then we'll I have a couple other follow-ups for you, Javon. Jackie, sustaining trust, right? So we've talked about how we build it, right? You meet people where they are, cultural competencies, adjust your approach to meet their needs and their restrictions or constraints. But how do you sustain it? Like, in the work you're doing, what strategies have you found that have been most effective in those programs that create that long-term rapport?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was discussed in the report earlier today. Again, definitely seeing a lot of synergy here. We definitely have our programming from 5:30 to 8 p.m. So we provide that dinner for them. They come in, they have dinner with us, and breaking bread is literally so important. We didn't have the funding for that at the beginning, but our executive director was like, hey, like, we know if our programming is going to be from 5:30, originally it was 6 p.m. To again accommodate people, but really you need more than 30 minutes to eat and get anywhere. So then she was able to find that funding and provide that for not only for our participants, but for their children as well that came in. Again, they trust you when they know that you're taking care of their needs. Again, when we first started the program, there was no child care intention involved, and we didn't have the funding either. But our executive director, again, was like, hey, like, our participants have children, to your point. Like, they can't just leave their kids because they have to go and learn something a skill that they need, but they have to be able to bring their family with them, because the reality is when they're out in the business, sometimes they are with their kids. We have folks that are in catering business, they bring their kids along. They're probably the ones helping them take the stuff out of the car and things like that. So it's just meeting them where they're at, and again, listening to what everyone's been sharing, like, what is it that they really need?
I love this idea about they trust you when you take care of their needs, and it's sort of one of you also said it about like the mental health coach, right, Robert? You were talking about like it's not just about here's how you file taxes or here's how you apply for this grant, but it's like you're a human being in our community. You know, there was wildfires that affected all of us, right? How are you doing, right? It's not just about did you fill in your form and get that done, right? It's that human-centered approach. How does it sustain over years, though? I mean, Javon, you've been in the program with LEAF, connected to LEAF for how long now?
Ooh, I believe I started during COVID.
Oh, so
When they first started, I was one of the first participants in the first cohort, and I believe we went from 7 to 10 or 6 to 10. It was via Zoom, of course, and it started off, I believe, 60 women on Zoom, and it was long nights. You know, luckily we didn't all have to be on camera, but I need to put my head down. But it was, I seen the vision. They took back feedback. We went and had different breakout rooms. We had different days to where you could go and get that mindset straight. You know, you could get everything that you wanted, and it was a community. And I will say to the Urban League, yes, I'm that type of person. I will go and investigate and see what's out there, and you have to as an entrepreneur, because one day, one organization you might miss, but then on everybody's website, it is information out there. So during COVID, I had 3 Zoom calls going on at one time. Yeah, don't ask me how. I will, hey, hi, this is Javon, and toss it up and turn that one off and just jump. And I was there, you know, because like we want them to show up, we have to show up too.
So how did you sustain it? I mean, you've been like 5 years now, 5 years if I do my math, with LEAF. What are they doing that keeps you engaged? You mentioned communities, that you feel like you belong here?
Yes, I know I belong here now because I'm also a growth facilitator.
Okay.
So, but before being a growth facilitator, I was an Uber Lyft driver. I'm like the queen of hustle. I know I have to figure it out because I don't want to go back to work. I believe in what I'm trying to bring to the community. So I will be driving, someone would call, I would take Zoom calls while I'm driving, because that was my mobile office. So it's like, the bills still have to get paid. I don't want nobody else calling me or something getting repoed. So I had to figure it out. And that's what entrepreneurship is about. You know, having a change of clothes in your car, so then, a meeting, pull over, go to the Burger King, change, and go, keep going. You know, it doesn't stop. But you have to have belief. You have to have the grit, the grind, as an entrepreneur. I don't use the word can't, won't, shouldn't. Those are barriers. Those are things that would stop you. Those are things that would get in the way. And, you know, you have to be like that horse with the blinders on. You can't look to the right, you can't look to the left, because the distractions are there. You know, periodically I would send YouTube videos or play them to myself, best motivational speeches, because we already have things in our head telling us it's not gonna work. We already have our families, our friends, nobody eats salads. That's what I was told. Who's gonna buy your salads? Black and brown people don't buy salads. Oh, really? Right now, Toss It Up is down the street at the hospital. First Farmers Market, we're expanding. I'm at 4 farmers markets now. About to go to a Glendale office, service 300 to 400 individuals. So it's like, I have to keep going. I don't want to go back to work. So I have no other choice.
And so this is interesting. You've got this hustle driving you as the entrepreneur, and you're an archetype, right? There's folks out there that we're serving that are just like you, and there's folks who they get in their head, unfortunately, and they don't have that. So I'm going back to Robert for a minute. You said you coughed how many years you've been working in the economic development space, right? A couple of decades, a couple of years, whatever it might be. Do you find that the relationships that you made early in your career still are providing value to the work you're doing now? And if so, how do you nurture that over time?
Definitely. Like I mentioned, when I first came in, I was a relatively young executive director running a nonprofit in East Los Angeles, 20 years ago, talking about sustainability, where people were like, green what? Or you're teaching young folks pushed out of, traditional schools, to be a part of this green economy. You're teaching leadership to like cholos, what are you doing? You're taking people who are pushed out of traditional schools and sending them to UCLA for programs. Like, what are you doing? Why are you wasting your time? So, I was faced with that as a young ED, so imposter syndrome is big because you're immediately coming to the space where a lot of the executive directors are so much older, you would see them as elders and you're a young person in this young space. And it was challenging, you would think that you'd have this collective of support, coming from, your elders, but, we didn't get that because of nonprofit gangbanging, right? Everybody's looking for this, fighting over the same dollars, right? So I credit Supervisor Solis, who is our congresswoman and our the Secretary of Labor with the Department of Labor, to really kind of like, when she's like, Robert, how you doing? She came out and she's like, Robert, how you doing? Who's supporting you? I was like, ain't nobody supporting you. You're supporting me. And she gave me, she was like, okay, she gave me this list of all these people that I needed to talk to. And all those people on those lists, Veronica Soto, Maria Cabildo, Daniel Villalao, all people that that are heavy hitters in this industry and that did serve as mentors. And to this day, we're still thought partners. I talk to all of them regularly. We're still in this work together. We're the folks that are doing the work outside of funding. When funding is not there, we're still figuring out how to create strategies to create that systemic change. So I think that's really important, developing those relationships, not feeling that it's hard not to feel a sense of competition within these spaces, because that's how these systems, pit us against each other. But I think as you talk about human-centered approach, or that we come from nonprofits, so everything that we do has to be mission-based.
Right.
It has to tie back to our mission. What are we trying to do? We're trying to put people to work. We're trying to get support to businesses. We're trying to, create strong local economies. That's a push, and we can't do it by ourselves. And we can't change the world, but we can make a difference.
So it's interesting, we started with this conversation about how do we build trust between the organization and provider and the recipient of that service, whatever that might be. And Robert's really amplifying that. It's not just the trust up and down, but lateral, right? Across organizations, that each of these panelists have the ability to support each other in supporting individuals. And think about your ecosystem of partners. Who can you rely on? Who provides complementary, non-competitive resources to your membership, your service sector? We talk about health providing. Maybe your organization does not provide the mental health services that you need to, but there's 2 or 3 dozen nonprofit mental health providers that could be a partner for folks in your program, right? How can you provide that? I'm not saying wraparound service, but wraparound service for entrepreneurship, for economic development, by having lateral partners or peer partners in the work you're doing, and build and sustain that trust. Sure, please, yeah.
That's actually how we at Orale got involved with LEAF, because we noticed that our curriculum and our program is very much tied with what LEAF is doing, but we see our programming as, again, that empowerment piece, while LEAF is providing that practical support. So if we saw a synergy right away, and with our program, folks end with a $400 stipend, which may be little, maybe a lot to start, spearhead your business, but we found out LEAF provides a $300. So in total, that's $700 that folks can use to be able to, again, either start up or invest into their business. So
that's great. And since you brought us here, I wonder, when you think about the resources and processes needed to do for business support programs, to follow through on their promises to business. So I think we talked about promises. So Jackie, you're doing this program, how do you maintain that promise? Because trust is built on delivering what you say you're going to deliver, and that you're fully caring for the needs of the individual. What do you need in place to be able to do that?
Money. And actually, funny enough, we actually got to talk to one of your colleagues at TMC yesterday, because we are seeing definitely, again, that synergy. And to your point, like a lot of, is it FDICs? CDFIs, sorry, all the names. CDFIs, again, there's many of them, although I would say not as many. But the reality is that yours, from what I've seen in my research, is definitely the one that we're seeing that more accessibility for our folks. So building those partnerships, like I was so excited to get to know your colleague yesterday, and we're looking to see like how do we partner up, officially become one of those organizations and things like that. So it's just that, being able to connect them to those resources.
So let's put Francisco on the spot. When you're farthest from the moderator, you're the last to speak.
No, that's fine.
But talking about that work you're doing, what strategies have you put in to define and measure value in your programs, right? And how do you set those benchmarks?
You know, one of the things we do is, again, we listen, right? But aside from that, just to comment on the last question, is when you talk to one of us, we do have an ecosystem up here. We do know each other. So if for some reason we can't help you, we don't just try to say no. We try to refer you to somebody else within the ecosystem that can help you. Now, as a lender, it's really simple for us to have, because we have inputs and outputs, right? Somebody applies with us, you know, we have the financial information, we have a credit score. Typically, we'll know the revenue, at least the monthly revenue that their business is generating. Then at the end, they get a loan. And oftentimes what we're seeing now is we have those businesses coming back. We establish that trust. They're coming back to us now. Hey, it's a year later. Hey, the first time I needed X amount, now I need twice that amount. And we actually get to see, hey, has your credit score improved? Have your expenses gone up or down? You know, did you listen to the advice you got either from us or our partners? So we really see year over year and borrower by borrower what the effect that our lending capital is having on that business. And it's great when you see a business come in and they're generating, you know, X amount, and then a year later they're doing twice that amount or 50% more. We actually see that on paper, and then we take that back in terms of how do we help. We're always trying to figure out how we help. I'm just going to mention this because I saw one earlier. So one of the things we did is when the fires happened, right? We wanted to get out there in the community. We know there's this hidden economy. We know they were talking about it earlier. There's nannies, there's housekeepers, there's gardeners out there. We wanted to get money out into the community. And I probably wouldn't have brought this up, but I actually met one of our grantee award winners earlier today. She was there and she said, oh my God, you were TMC, I got one of your grants. I had no idea, and it was just so great to actually meet somebody in person who was able to get one of the grants. And the only reason we were able to put that grant out there is because we didn't get stuck in committee. We're a small organization, we just covered the state. We have a blueprint in place for what we want to do and who we want to help. So when the fires happened, we said, well, can we model what we've been doing on the lending side and put out a grant out there to help these communities? And how do we do that? How do we do that quickly? And we were able to, still in January, put that program together, fundraise, and get that money out into the community.
And I'll just acknowledge you're one of maybe half a dozen programs that were able to do it. Think about Los Angeles, think about Southern California, think about the US. There was about 5 or 6 organizations that did grants. That's it. One of them being LA County, which was tremendous, $19 million they pushed out. But TMC was like one of the other leaders in this space. And so it's amazing when you have that focus and you know what you're trying to do as an organization, that you can apply that roadmap to what's in front of you. And if there's anything we've seen as Angelinos, everybody's from LA, right? Out SoCal, right? Well, Angelinos here. You know, this first 3 months of this year have been a roller coaster from one thing to the next, nationally, local, whatever it might be, that affects, who does it affect, right? The most vulnerable, the smallest business owners, the small, you know, the households on the edge. And so it's important to have partners like that and understand that. So to the group, you know, we're coming up on maybe about 5 more minutes and then we're gonna go to questions. So make sure you're writing down your questions while we're talking. Because otherwise I have 40 more I could ask. So as you think about what you're doing, think about your ecosystem, and maybe as you're listening, think about your ecosystem where you're serving the community as well. When you think about your work, and we know this panel is doing the right thing, that's why you're in the panel here, but you look around the neighborhood, whether it's, you know, a portion of South LA or Lincoln Heights or Boyle Heights or whatever heights you're in, when you think about that neighborhood, you look around and you see government. We talked about Hilda Solis and her influence as a local legislator and back again as a local legislator. And you think about the business, the Intuits, right, of the world. You think about the residents. You think about the small businesses, the hidden entrepreneurs, or the sort of that hidden economy of folks that are doing things maybe not as we expect them to, but they're still making it work. Where is the greatest success when you think about a geographic community? And don't go Los Angeles, too big, right? But think about your neighborhood, where you live, where you work or focus your work, or one of the areas you focus. What do you see is really the thing that is making it work? What makes it unique in that neighborhood? So pick a neighborhood and tell us what's working as we're supporting entrepreneurs and economic growth for small folks, smaller upcoming businesses. Jackie, do you have something in mind?
Yeah,
Okay, let's hear
I
it.
can think of it. So Orale, we're based out in Long Beach, so we serve the Long Beach, Wilmington, surrounding community. And what's worked with us, what's innovative is that, again, usually when you think of workforce centers, you think of your traditional jobs, but we primarily serve undocumented communities. And for them, because they have to be in these hidden economies, we partnered up with them. Back then they were Pacific Gateway, now they're LP Win, and forming that partnership with the workforce center versus your traditional like business centers, because again, like the services can be very similar, but again, they have more of those resources that can help them with the initial like empowerment and support systems that they need. So think outside the box. You don't always necessarily have to go, not to say like SBDC, SBA, we're forming those relationships as well, but sometimes they're not as accessible for some of our participants because of the 9 to 5. So think outside the box and see what can you do to bring in those ties with your city. Our executive director, our team has a great relationship with the mayor in Long Beach and building that. So again, I would encourage you all to think outside the box.
Cool.
I say get involved with your neighborhood councils, refer those who you know. I'm from South LA, but hey, I'm here in East LA. It's no difference. We have the same barriers. We need to blend the Black and brown community. We need to come together. And we, entrepreneurs are problem solvers. I was told when I was little, you're always trying to make something better. Well, I want to make my city better. So instead of just looking at trash, go join a committee to pick up the trash. You want something beautiful, start planting. It starts with us. So whatever your address is, go outside and plant some flowers. You know, knock on your neighbor's door and say, hey, do you need help? And you know business owners, so refer. Hey, did you know this company has this? This organization has that. Me, I'm very resourceful. I'm gonna tell you it all. Go here, go there. They do this, they do that, and gather all that free information. We're paying taxes. They take this is where our tax money goes. So might as well utilize what we paid for. Don't let it go to waste. And like stated, once you become a part of the organization, they're gonna refer you to other places. So, yeah, that's my key.
Expand your network.
Yeah, expand. Don't be afraid. Jump in the water. Don't be that person at the pool party just looking at everybody else swimming and having a good time. Jump in with us, you know, and we'll help you. We'll guide you. We won't let you drown.
Awesome. Thank you. Francisco.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I know we want to take some questions. One of the big things about us, I'll just give you a couple quick stats. Last year we did 256 loans. Out of those loans, at least 80% came from community partners. As a small organization, as a 4 or 5 year organization, not everybody knows about us. We have 14 or 15 employees. Even if we were all on the field, we can't cover the entire state of California, so we really rely on community partners. If you talk to the community partners local to your area, it's likely they might know companies like ours, or ours in particular, right? And so connect with lenders or people you may not know through those community partners. But we're really big on staying local to your community, and those community partners being able to refer you to whether it be a lender or technical assistance or bookkeeping service or whatever you might need. So that's kind of a little bit of my takeaway here as we wind down.
Perfect, Robert.
Yeah, so as Los Angeles Urban League, you know, our strengths are we're advocates and we're conveners, you know. So as we talked about, like, I mean, one of the benefits of living in Los Angeles, we have this beautiful ecosystem of small business support. I mean, there could be more, but we have more than most,
Yeah.
folks. But the issue is we work in silos. And so one of the things we want to do with the Urban League is to develop this ecosystem, be the conveners that help bring folks together where we could work together in community and scaffold programs. So as we invest in a program like Toss Up Salad, we take them, or you go from one program to another program to another program, and so that you're building capacity so that we could handhold people to, our street vendors, to folks from Inclusive Action, we were utilizing this resource of networks where we're communicating and we're handing off. And we also want to utilize technology. And I mean, so many people are so anti-AI, but we could really utilize AI to create these resource hubs that are so needed to, connect us all. The buyers taught us that we have to go out to the community. And we needed resources the beauty is we have phones, we have resources at our hands, so we could develop these AI generated resource hubs where we can make these connections or create these data management systems that could connect us all, to hand off, people from program to program and really develop this intense network. I think, we could really make some systemic change.
I agree, and I think just to amplify that, and what we've heard here is this. It's not just, I think we came in with this idea of how do we build trust to the client. It's really about this, right? The people in this room being able to focus and support each other, but still remembering one of the key findings here in the report is that it's still about someone guiding that person. So I don't just, here's Bob, and I hand it off to Robert, and then Robert hands it off to Francisco, and next thing you know, the person just tossed around to all these resources. It's great, but someone has to anchor them, and someone has to help make sure they don't drown by making sure they're with them, swimming alongside, or giving them the floaties, right? So they can check in, make sure they're inflated as you go along. That's what has to happen here. Let me go to, we have a couple minutes. I'd love to hear questions from our group gathered here. What do you want to know from our panel that has been burning in your mind? What did you hear that maybe thought that you wrote down and underlined twice? Like, what's the thing that sort of resonated with you? Yes.
I can go ahead and ask, I know, what is your name?
Javon.
Javon, she was mentioning about how hard it is, like, to live here and trying, like, I work 2 jobs, and I'm a mom and a grandma. So we all wanted, we here because we want our business, we want to grow up, we want to do things, but it's really hard. It's extremely hard, because if you don't work, you don't eat. And then if you don't eat, I mean, how can you get, go and say, okay, today I'm just gonna call off to work just to be here. Like me, I'm working today. So I said, I'm gonna come back later because I wanna be here. I wanna get myself, like you said, into it. But sometimes it's really hard, especially when you came from like a poor, families, underserved. And it's, for us just to navigate and try, it's really extremely hard. So like, I know this is important, it's culture and community, this is what we're talking about if we really want to help the ones down, right? If we don't have like people that we go to, like I'm here because I know these people, they live, they're really nice to me, so they always approach me because they see that I want to do something. My question is, how can we do it? How can we lose to gain? And then if we're trying to do that at the same time, what about if we lose both?
Yeah.
You see, so we like kind of like, and I get you because I've been everywhere too. Believe me, I'm here and I'm supposed to be working, so I don't care.
So Javon,
But it's really, really hard to do that. So if you guys are there, how you guys did it? If you guys can for underserved people, how do you guys did it?
I understand where you're coming from. I would say start writing out your schedule. See where you can shave oftentimes, because sometimes we waste time. It could be watching TV, and also, it's changing your mindset if you're scrolling on social media. And get your child on a schedule too. Meal prepping, you have to save time. So then looking at your finances, where are you spending your money? Where can you save it? Are you going to Starbucks a lot? Are you going to fast food restaurants? Because that's where your money is going. So therefore, we have to figure out, how do we stop 2 jobs? Let's get to 1, okay? So, and then I know you got to spend time with your child. So maybe depending on how that job is, you could do maybe a 1099 like Uber Eats or something to spend time. Kids love to do stuff depending on the age that you have. But we have to start thinking outside the box. So when I and when I'm on the phone with my growth, my business leader, sorry, I understand the pain because I've been there. So what time do you wake up in the morning? First thing to do, put on some motivational speeches because like you said, it's hard. So that cement blocking your head, we got to chisel that off. And then just start looking at where you're spending your time. Meal prepping, washing clothes, I don't know, but we have to try to adjust the time so then you could get off that second job. And then like stated, where you're spending your money. Put that money is to go towards that business. If your hair, I got to do my own hair. Press-ons, couponing. I do a lot of mystery shopping. I can tell you how to save on some groceries. So it's a lot you could do that we're not thinking about and trusting that, okay, this might work. So just start writing out your schedule and then seeing how much time is spent doing BS work. That's basically.
Yeah, Robert.
And quickly, as program designers, as people that are designing programs, we have to be responsive to those needs. So one of the things that we've done is when we talk to Office Depot, when we talk to Intuit about giving businesses money, we want that money to be flexible. So that if we give you $10,000, you could do whatever you want with it. You might need to go get your hair done. You might need to take some time to like compensate for the loss of work that you're doing. So we need to make our funding as flexible as possible so that so the business owner could supplement that. So I think getting that input is really valuable because we could take those needs, because sometimes funders like to put all these restrictions on what they can fund.
Mm-hmm.
And so like we have to educate them on what the needs of this community are.
I love that. Great. We have time for one more question. Yes.
Yeah, this question might be for Robert, or anyone can answer who's had experience working with government contracts. And like specifically, we can design programs that are, easy to access and all that, but at times we have government contract programs that are different, right? They require different, they're a whole different species. And I find that sometimes it's difficult to have the people within our Rolodex of clients like really trust the government contract that we're working on or the process that's being built. And I guess I just kind of want some like tips or what's worked, how do you push back to these government entities that are kind of asking for certain deliverables, but you're still like on the first layer trying to build trust for the client.
Yeah, so I think it's all about developing relationships. I think understanding, like, I know when I work with federal contracts, coming from a grassroots organization when I was a young ED, I came into, my conversation with the Department of Labor saying, I fell into this mess. I'm not necessarily sure how to clean it up. Program officer, please help me. I'm not trying to hide anything. You can send your auditors, help me. We forget that cities, counties, government, they work for us. They're public service providers. So it's their job to help us figure this stuff out. So it's their job to help us figure it out, but it's also our job to not, to be vulnerable, be transparent. Like a lot of times when we see auditors, we're like, oh no, we don't want to hide things. No, just this is who we are. Messy. These are marriages, right? When you're going to establish these relationships, there's marriages. You have your government agency and you have your provider. That's the man and wife or the partner and partner, the marriage, and then the people you service, those are your kids. So you're going to have that constant communication between how you're going to support your kids, because that's your role as the parents. You have to, you're providing for these kids, and you have to remind each other that, and each, make sure that you're communicating different roles. Different parents might have different ways of raising their kids, but having that first line of communication and being able to, making sure that you advocate and feel like you need to advocate, but at the same time, a lot of times we advocate, but we don't also provide them the stuff that they need. So we have to make sure that our ducks are in a row, that we're providing we're trying our best to meet those requirements, and we're providing the paperwork, we're doing all the administrative stuff that they need, because once we have that, then we demonstrate that's our power, that's our power as a program provider. We're doing good stuff for you. We're making you look good by the work that we're doing. So you need us just as much as we need you, right? So that gives you a little leverage. If you're doing everything that you need to do administratively and programmatically and fiscally, you know, you have all those ducks in a row, then you have more capital to be able to call them out and say, hey, you need us. This is how we advocate for the community. And that's how you create that change. You know, that's where you could, you know, push, you know, sometimes, you know, you're gonna fight, you know, couples fight, you know, and sometimes it gets ugly. And, you know, we're having this issue with, we're not a government, but Intuit, like, I mean, we go at it with Intuit, you know, as an organization, we're like, you don't like what we're doing, kick rocks, you know, like, I mean, the money that you're giving, the money you're getting versus the money you're giving us is piddly, you know, let's be real, you know, so being confident enough in the work that you're doing to advocate, I think is really important in a fight, as long as you're respectful, and as long as there's a mutual communication, I think you're good.
Thanks, Robert.
I hope that helps.
Thank all of you for being here and listening. I saw a lot of people taking notes. Our panelists are not going to run away, but could you please give a round of applause to Francisco, Devon, Robert, and Jackie for being with us. And hopefully you've taken at least one nugget away that you can apply later today or later this week as you work to improve yourself or support others looking to do the same. And then I think we're going back to the main room. Is that back to the main room?
Yes, absolutely. And then if you guys are interested as well, on the panel over here, we have read the report to the report that we were sharing earlier today. And if you haven't filled out those cards as well, feel free to fill them out. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
We need another hour. That's okay. We got it. We got it. I appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Great notes. I mean, great comments.
Yes.
So let's,
I am a part of the early.
so what program?
I did the food.
So I was thinking like
Great conversation.
Yes, thank you, yes. 'Cause my goal now is the building I see, and I feel like it will change the hearts of our neighborhood. I know, I don't right, because so dull. There's something now. This could be the start of curriculum. Yeah, for sure. Yes. Telling your
I love what you're doing.
yeah, you want to be able to really what's happening in this round.
I'd love to. Yeah, I want a couple ideas. After our one-to-one. Okay, let's probably
Things change
community support, but I know it's all being there.
We're just chatting.
Hi, I'm Veronica.
Veronica.
I'm with the production. I just so you can share.
Thank you.
Just wanted to, I know.
So I just turn on, go on YouTube, best motivational speeches. The first one to come on, okay. And I had just, you can do it. And I'm like, okay, I can do it. Because when I first started, I had to get up 4 o'clock in the morning to make salads. I went fast and I had to be at work. And I would cry. Like, why me? And then next thing you know, somebody said, it's not who then? Like, you been who? I'm like, oh my God.
That motivation.
Yeah. And then you can just like this. I had people tell me side by side. So it's not just coming from you. I'm like, you know, it's hard to get out there. You know, when you go to the farmer's market, you still have a fast food at the farmer's market. So you still have a, hey, taco, salad over taco.
It's amazing. I mean, I've been in the wellness industry for the last 12 years selling clothes, and now I teach it. You're in the same program.
This is my first like TMC outing, my first panel.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
I see Natalie all the time.